The moment you blow out the candles on your 70th birthday, a silent and invisible clock begins to tick with a newfound mechanical aggression. Most people believe that aging is a slow and linear slope, a gentle decline that we can see coming from miles away. But medical science and the raw reality of geriatric care tell a much darker story. For 99% of the human population, the age of 70 acts as a biological cliff. It is the point where the compensatory mechanisms your body has used for decades finally begin to crack. Your doctor might tell you that your blood pressure is fine or that your heart sounds strong, but they often fail to mention the systemic shift occurring beneath the surface. This is the stage where the internal systems that regulate your very existence, your temperature, your stability, your muscle density, and your cognitive restoration, begin to desynchronize. If you do not recognize these changes immediately, you risk losing the one thing every senior prizes above all else: your independence. We are talking about a fundamental transformation in how your cells communicate and how your organs prioritize survival. This is not just about getting older. It is about a specific physiological pivot that can lead to a rapid loss of autonomy within months if left unaddressed. You must understand that the rules of the game have changed. The lifestyle that kept you healthy at 50 or 60 is no longer sufficient to protect you at 70. We are entering a zone where small oversights in your daily routine translate into catastrophic physical failures. This is your critical warning. The gap between a vibrant, self-reliant elder and someone who requires full-time care is often defined by how they respond to these 5 specific shifts in the first few years of their 70s. We are going to strip away the polite euphemisms of modern medicine and look directly at the hard truths of the aging body. This journey is about reclaiming your power before the biological clock dictates your future. The reality is that your body is currently undergoing a massive recalibration, and if you are not the one steering the ship, the current will pull you toward a state of permanent dependency. You are facing a choice between a decade of active, purposeful living or a decade of gradual retreat. Medical professionals often focus on managing chronic diseases like diabetes or heart disease, yet they rarely discuss the systemic fragility that underpins these conditions. At 70, your body's ability to bounce back from minor stressors, what we call physiological resilience, begins to plummet. A minor cold, a slight slip, or a night of poor sleep now carries a much higher biological cost than it did just a few years ago. This is because the cellular repair mechanisms that once worked in the background are now struggling to keep up with the daily wear and tear. You are effectively driving a high-performance vehicle that has suddenly lost its ability to self-repair on the fly. To survive and thrive in this new era, you must become a master of your own biology. You must learn to listen to the subtle signals your body sends before they turn into loud, painful alarms. This script is your roadmap through the biological minefield of the 70s, providing you with the wisdom and the scientific strategies needed to maintain your dignity and your health. We will explore the hidden mechanics of your muscles, your brain, and your internal regulation, showing you exactly how to intervene and turn the tide in your favor. The most immediate and physically devastating change that occurs after 70 is the onset of accelerated sarcopenia. While we lose a small percentage of muscle every decade after 30, hitting 70 is like hitting an accelerator pedal on a steep downhill. This is not merely a cosmetic issue or a matter of not being as strong as you once were in your youth. In the world of geriatric health, muscle is now considered a functional endocrine organ. It is the primary site for glucose disposal and the main engine for your metabolism. When you lose muscle mass at this age, you are not just losing strength, you are losing your metabolic armor against chronic disease. The specific tragedy of post-70 muscle loss is the rapid disappearance of type 2 fast-twitch muscle fibers. These are the fibers responsible for power and speed. They are the ones that allow you to catch yourself if you stumble on a curb or to rise quickly from a deep, soft chair without assistance. As these fibers wither, your reaction time slows to a dangerous, heavy crawl. This loss of physical power creates a feedback loop of frailty that is hard to break. You move less because you feel weaker and less stable, and because you move less, the muscle vanishes even faster. Within the medical community, this is known as the fragility fracture pathway. Without the structural support of a dense muscular frame, your bones are left exposed, and your joints take the full brunt of every movement. This is why a simple trip over a loose rug becomes a life-altering event for someone over 70, whereas a younger person would simply stagger, engage their core, and recover. Furthermore, muscle acts as a vital reservoir for amino acids that the body needs during times of acute stress or illness. If you fall ill with a common virus but have no muscle reserves, your body will begin to break down its own vital tissues to survive the infection. This is why many seniors never fully recover their strength after a brief hospital stay. They simply did not have the metabolic savings account to pay the price of the illness. The science is clear. At 70, you must move from a mindset of general activity to a mindset of aggressive muscle preservation. You are in a race against a biological process that wants to strip you of your mobility and lock you into a sedentary existence. Every pound of muscle you maintain through resistance training and proper protein intake is an insurance policy for your dignity. It is the difference between walking to the grocery store on your own terms and being confined to a wheelchair because your legs can no longer support the weight of your own existence. To combat this, you must prioritize high-quality protein at every meal, aiming for 30 to 40 grams per serving, to trigger the muscle-building signals that become harder for the body to hear as we age. You must also challenge your muscles with resistance, even if it is just your own body weight or resistance bands. Ignoring this shift is the fastest way to become a passenger in your own life. When the muscles fail, the skeleton follows. And once the skeleton is compromised, the internal organs begin to suffer from the lack of movement and circulation. You must treat your muscle mass with the same reverence a scholar treats their library. It is a collection of capabilities that, once lost, are incredibly difficult to restore. Your independence literally hangs on the strength of your fibers. The second profound shift that catches 99% of 70-year-olds off guard is the sudden destabilization of the circadian rhythm. Your brain possesses a master clock known as the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which has governed your cycles of alertness and repair for decades. However, once you cross the threshold of 70, this internal clock often begins to lose its rhythmic tension. You may find yourself nodding off in the early evening, only to wake up at 3 or 4 in the morning, staring at the ceiling while the rest of the world sleeps. This is not just a frustrating change in your schedule. It is a fundamental breakdown in your brain's waste management system. During the deepest stages of sleep, specifically what scientists call stage N3 or slow wave sleep, your brain activates the glymphatic system. Think of this as a nightly power wash for your neurons. It is during these hours that the brain flushes out metabolic waste products, including amyloid beta and tau proteins, which are closely linked to cognitive decline and memory loss. As we age past 70, our ability to enter and sustain this deep, restorative sleep diminishes significantly. Instead of a solid block of recovery, your sleep becomes fragmented, shallow, and inefficient. This lack of brain cleaning is why many seniors experience increased brain fog and irritability during the day. Furthermore, the production of melatonin, the hormone that signals to your body that it is time to rest, drops precipitously. Your body becomes less sensitive to the natural cues of light and dark, leading to a state of permanent social jet lag. You are tired when you should be awake, and awake when you should be resting. This chronic sleep fragmentation triggers a low-grade inflammatory response throughout your entire body, stressing your heart and compromising your immune system. It creates a dangerous environment where your body is constantly in repair mode but never actually finishes the job. To combat this, you must treat your sleep environment with the precision of a laboratory. You can no longer afford to be casual about blue light exposure from television or phones in the evening, as these signals further confuse your weakened master clock. Transitioning to a strict routine of morning sunlight exposure is critical. Those early photons tell your brain exactly when the day has started, helping to anchor the rhythm for the following night. You must also realize that your body's temperature regulation is tied to this clock. A slight drop in core body temperature is required to initiate deep sleep, which becomes harder for a 70-year-old body to achieve on its own. Modern medicine often resorts to sedative prescriptions for the elderly, but these drugs frequently fail to provide the actual deep sleep architecture the brain requires. They merely provide a chemical knockout. True restoration comes from aligning your lifestyle with these new biological constraints. If you ignore this shift in sleep architecture, you are essentially leaving the trash inside your brain to pile up day after day. Over a decade, this accumulation can be the difference between staying sharp and losing your cognitive edge. You must prioritize the quality of your rest, as if your memory depends on it, because it quite literally does. The fourth transformation is one of the most invisible yet dangerous shifts in the aging body: the breakdown of your internal thermostat. By the time you reach 70, your body's ability to regulate its own temperature, a process known as thermoregulation, undergoes a dramatic decline. This is driven by a thinning of the protective fat layer beneath your skin and a decrease in the sensitivity of your sweat glands. In your younger years, if you stepped into a room that was too hot or too cold, your nervous system would immediately trigger a response, either dilating blood vessels to release heat or shivering to generate it. For a 70-year-old, those signals are often delayed or muted. This creates a high-risk scenario where you might be overheating or becoming dangerously cold without even realizing it until it is too late. Your heart has to work significantly harder to move blood to the surface of the skin to cool you down, which puts an immense strain on a cardiovascular system that may already be dealing with age-related stiffening. This is why heat waves and cold snaps are disproportionately fatal for those over 70. Your body has lost its buffer zone, the ability to maintain a steady internal environment despite the chaos of the outside world. Furthermore, this lack of thermal control affects your energy levels and your comfort throughout the day. If your body is constantly struggling to stay warm, it is burning through metabolic energy that should be used for movement or cognitive function. Many seniors find themselves chronically fatigued simply because their internal furnace is inefficient. You may notice that your hands and feet are perpetually cold, which is a sign that your peripheral circulation is retracting to protect your core organs. While this is a survival mechanism, it also reduces your tactile sensitivity, making you more prone to dropping objects or losing your footing. To navigate this change, you must stop relying on your own perception of temperature and start relying on data. Keeping a thermometer in your living space is no longer a luxury. It is a safety requirement. You must also proactively hydrate, even when you do not feel thirsty, because the sensation of thirst often diminishes alongside your ability to sweat. Water is a key component of your body's cooling system, and without it, your blood thickens, making it even harder for your heart to pump. Understanding this shift also means rethinking your clothing and environment. Layering is not just about fashion. It is about manually doing the job that your skin and blood vessels used to do automatically. By providing your body with external thermal support, you take the pressure off your heart and lungs. If you ignore this reality, you are leaving your most vital organs vulnerable to thermal shock. Maintaining a stable core temperature is the foundation upon which all other health interventions are built, yet it is the one most often ignored in the standard medical checkup. The fifth critical shift that defines life after 70 occurs deep within the walls of your gastrointestinal tract. While many consider digestive issues a mere inconvenience of age, the reality is a systematic slowdown of the entire metabolic engine. As you cross this decade, your stomach begins to produce significantly less hydrochloric acid, a condition known as hypochlorhydria. This isn't just about indigestion. It is a fundamental barrier to nutrition. Without sufficient acid, your body cannot effectively break down proteins or liberate essential vitamins like B12 and minerals like calcium and magnesium from the food you eat. You could be eating a perfect diet and still be starving at a cellular level because the gatekeeper of your digestion has grown weak. Furthermore, the physical movement of food through your system, known as peristalsis, slows down considerably. This increased transit time allows for a shift in your gut microbiome, often leading to an overgrowth of bad bacteria that trigger systemic inflammation. This is why many 70-year-olds suddenly develop new food sensitivities or chronic bloating. The gut-brain axis is also compromised. When your digestion is sluggish, your cognitive clarity often mirrors that sluggishness. This is the stage where the diversity of your gut bacteria, the very foundation of your immune system, starts to thin out, leaving you more vulnerable to infections and autoimmune responses. To manage this, you must rethink how you fuel your body. Large, heavy meals are no longer easily processed by a 70-year-old system. Instead, smaller, nutrient-dense portions that are pre-digested through cooking or fermentation can take the load off your stomach. Supplementing with digestive enzymes or natural bitters can help stimulate the acid production you are missing. You must also realize that hydration is the lubricant for this entire process. Without adequate water, the fiber you eat can actually become a blockage rather than a benefit. If you ignore this digestive slowdown, you are essentially running a high-performance machine on low-grade, poorly filtered fuel. The danger of ignoring this shift is a slow slide into malnutrition of the affluent. You may have plenty of food on your plate, but your bones are thinning and your brain is shrinking because the nutrients are simply passing through you. This is why many seniors experience a sudden drop in energy and a thinning of the skin. The body is prioritizing internal survival over outward maintenance. By intervening in your digestive health, you ensure that every bite you take is actually contributing to your longevity rather than just filling a void. Your gut is the literal soil from which your health grows, and at 70, that soil requires much more intentional cultivation. The sixth and perhaps most life-altering shift involves the sudden degradation of your internal GPS, specifically your sense of proprioception and equilibrium. By the time you reach 70, the intricate communication between your inner ear, your eyes, and the nerve receptors in the soles of your feet begins to lag. This is not just about feeling a bit dizzy. It is a systematic failure of the sensory feedback loops that keep you upright. In your younger years, your brain processed these signals at lightning speed, allowing you to navigate uneven pavement or dim lighting without a second thought. After 70, the latency in this system increases, creating a sensory mismatch that makes every step a calculated risk. The vestibular system in your inner ear, which acts as your body's level, loses the hair cells that detect motion. Simultaneously, the nerves in your feet, the very sensors that tell your brain where your center of gravity is located, become less sensitive. This is why many 70-year-olds begin to develop a shuffling gait. It is a subconscious survival mechanism. Your brain is so unsure of its position in space that it refuses to lift your feet off the ground, fearing a fall. This loss of balance is the single greatest predictor of a transition from independent living to a nursing facility. A single fall at this age often results in a hip fracture, and statistics show that a high percentage of seniors never regain their previous level of mobility after such an injury. To counteract this, you must engage in specific balance training that goes beyond simple walking. You must challenge your nervous system to recalibrate by practicing standing on one leg, walking heel to toe, or using a wobble board under supervision. You are essentially rewiring the connection between your brain and your limbs. You must also realize that your vision now plays a much larger role in your stability than it used to. If your environment is poorly lit, your brain loses its primary data source for balance, making you significantly more likely to stumble. This is why a simple nightlight in the hallway can be a literal lifesaver for someone over 70. Ignoring this decline in equilibrium is like driving a car with a broken steering rack. You might move forward, but you have no control over where you end up. Most people wait until they have their first near miss or a minor tumble before they take balance seriously. But by then, the neurological pathways have already weakened. You must treat balance as a perishable skill that requires daily maintenance. By strengthening the conversation between your feet and your brain, you are building a biological safety net. This intervention allows you to maintain the confidence to leave your home, engage with your community, and live a life that is not defined by the fear of the floor. The seventh critical shift involves a complete overhaul of how your body processes nutrition, necessitating a departure from the eating habits of your middle years. At 70, your body develops what scientists call anabolic resistance. This means your muscles no longer respond to small amounts of protein the way they did when you were 40. In your younger years, a single egg or a piece of toast might have been enough to maintain your tissues. Now, your cells require a much higher threshold of amino acids, specifically leucine, to trigger the on switch for muscle repair and immune function. If you do not meet this threshold at every meal, your body will simply pull the nutrients it needs from your own organs and bones. This is why many seniors who believe they are eating healthily still experience wasting and frailty. They are eating enough calories, but they are not reaching the nutrient density required for this stage of life. Furthermore, your requirements for micronutrients like vitamin D, magnesium, and omega-3 fatty acids skyrocket. Your skin is less efficient at synthesizing vitamin D from the sun, and your kidneys are less efficient at activating it. Since vitamin D is a master regulator of your immune system and bone density, a deficiency after 70 is not just a minor lack. It is a catastrophic opening for chronic illness and cognitive decline. To adapt, you must prioritize quality over quantity. Every calorie must carry a heavy load of nutrition. This means moving away from processed carbohydrates that spike your insulin and increase inflammation, and moving toward high-quality animal or plant proteins, healthy fats, and dark leafy greens that provide the minerals your nervous system craves. You must also reconsider your relationship with hydration. Because your thirst mechanism is likely dampened, you must drink water on a schedule, rather than waiting for a signal that may never come. Dehydration at 70 leads to confusion, urinary tract infections, and increased fall risks. Ignoring these nutritional realities leads to a state of hidden hunger, where the body is technically fed but biologically starving. This cellular starvation is what often drives the profound fatigue and slowing down that people mistakenly attribute to natural aging. It is not natural. It is a nutritional mismatch. By adjusting your intake to meet the demands of an aging metabolism, you provide your body with the raw materials it needs to repair the damage of the day. You are essentially providing the construction crew with the bricks and mortar they need to keep the building standing. Without these materials, the structure will inevitably begin to crumble from the inside out. The final and most defining shift that occurs after 70 is the evolution of the psychological blueprint for autonomy. While the physical changes we have discussed are rooted in biology, your response to them is rooted in your mindset. At this stage of life, there is a pervasive social narrative that 70 is the beginning of the end, a time to withdraw, to accept limitations, and to hand over the reins of your life to others. If you internalize this narrative, your biology will follow your psychology. Research in the field of psychoneuroimmunology shows that seniors who maintain a sense of purpose and a pro-aging mindset actually have lower levels of systemic inflammation and a more robust immune response than those who view aging as a period of inevitable decay. Maintaining your dignity and self-control requires a conscious decision to remain the protagonist of your own story. This means being proactive about the changes you are experiencing, rather than being a passive victim of them. It involves the courage to adapt, to use a walking aid if it keeps you moving, to change your diet to protect your brain, and to seek out social connections that challenge your intellect. The psychological trap of the 70s is the shrinking world syndrome, where fear of falling or fear of embarrassment leads to a gradual withdrawal from the activities that once brought joy. This isolation is as toxic to your health as cigarette smoking, accelerating cognitive decline and physical frailty. To master this stage of life, you must cultivate a warrior mentality toward your own health. This is not about denying that you are getting older. It is about refusing to let age dictate your worth or your capabilities. You must set new goals that are appropriate for your current physiology. Perhaps it is no longer running marathons, but it is maintaining the strength to garden, to travel, or to play with your grandchildren. This sense of agency is the secret sauce that allows the 99% to transition into the elite group of superagers who remain sharp and active well into their 90s. You are not just managing a body. You are presiding over a legacy of experience and wisdom. If you ignore the psychological component of aging, the physical interventions we have discussed will only take you so far. The body will not fight for a life that the mind has already given up on. Therefore, your final task in your 70s is to redefine what it means to be powerful. Power is no longer found in youthful speed, but in the disciplined maintenance of your health, the depth of your relationships, and the clarity of your purpose. By understanding these 5 major physical shifts and meeting them with both scientific strategy and psychological resilience, you ensure that your 70s are not a period of decline, but a masterclass in living with dignity, strength, and unyielding independence.